Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce growth map podcast. My name is Frank Kinney. I'm the head of paid media and CEO of Line Media. And so we recently launched this podcast for a specific reason. We get flooded with questions from our clients in terms of like what's happening in the paid media space, what's happening with Meta, what's happening with Google, right? What's happening, just all these questions. So we thought, okay, let's put together a podcast and then go over a lot of these questions that our clients ask us. Because if they're having these questions, also other founders and operators in the D2C space also having these questions, right? And so we wanted to be able to cater to you guys too as well, right? And in any case that you need help running your paid media account, whether that be on Meta, Google, TikTok, or just overall strategy, right? That's something that we can help you guys with. So in this particular episode, we want to talk about specific account structures, right? And we're going to focus specifically on Meta, right? And why Meta? Because we honestly think Meta is one of the greatest advertising engine or platform that has ever been created, right? For a host of different reasons that we're going to talk about in this podcast today, right? But when you just look at the sheer volume of people that has a Facebook or an Instagram account, it's significantly above any other platform that currently exists today, right? So that also means that they have significant orders of magnitude more data than any other platform, right? Everybody's on Facebook, everybody's on Instagram, right? And Meta owns both of those platforms. And so that's why we believe, one of the reasons why we believe it's the most advanced and the most, just the best platform out there to be able to spend your advertising dollars to get a good return, right? And so talking about structure, because the way that you structure or merchandise your ad account is very important to how successful your brand or your business will be, or the particular product that you're selling will be, right? Because oftentimes because when we audit a lot of ad accounts, right, we see that because part of our process of working with you, first of all, we audit brands' ad account. And to essentially see what they've been doing, either what they've been doing or like other agencies have been doing, right? And we see that like setup is a huge issue, right? And so which is what we want to break down today. So the way that you set up your ad account is important, right? Because what we often see is that brands or operators, they'll run either run multiple campaigns, right? They'll have like multiple campaigns just running at the same time. And the reason why it's not advised to do that is because, one, you're like kind of spreading your dollars way too thin, right? And so when you do that, your account never exits the learning phase. And exiting the learning phase is a huge part of Meta, essentially understanding like the customers that you're going after to be able to really just scale efficiently a specific campaign, right? But if you're like spreading your advertising dollar across like multiple different campaigns, then it's like you never really get out the learning phase. Because when we look at ad accounts, we see that, okay, none of these campaigns or these ad sets are in a learning phase, right? And specifically, you see a learning phase within a specific ad sets, right? And Meta advice, like the best way to exit a learning phase is to get 50 conversion within a 7-day time frame, right? And so if you're spreading your advertising dollar across multiple ad sets or like multiple campaigns and spending a couple dollars here and there, like you'll never exit the learning phase because like one, you're not spending enough to reach the volume of people for the algorithm to understand who your customer is, and so therefore it gets stuck trying to figure out who your customer is, and so that's a lot of the reason why particular campaigns or ad sets don't necessarily generate the efficiency that they want to, right? And so a lot of brands like Meta doesn't work, or like, okay, you're not necessarily like setting it up right correctly, right? And so again, it takes Meta advice to 50 conversion within a 7-day time frame, right? And so then the question will be, okay, like how do I know what I'm supposed to be spending on a specific ad set? And Meta actually does give you a formula for that, right? Which I don't think I remember quite on the top of my head, but we'll look that up, right? But Meta actually does give you a formula for that, right? And I'm pretty sure it's the following, actually. Yeah, you have to multiply what your customer acquisition cost is, or what your target CAC is. You have to multiply what that is times 7, right? Whatever that is whatever you need to be spending on each ad set. So again, you multiply what your CAC target is. I think it is CAC or either like your AOV. Like you multiply your CAC or maybe AOV. I have to double check that. So you multiply that times 7. That gives you how much you need to be spending on how much you need to be spending on your specific ad set. And I'm pretty sure now it's thinking about it. I'm pretty sure it's like AOV. So you take your AOV of a specific product. So you multiply that by 7. That gives you how much you need to be spending on a specific ad set, right? And so that gives you like the best probability of essentially exiting the learning phase, because then that gives significant data to the system then to be able to exit the learning phase. And then from there, you can start scaling the specific ad set, right? So talking about structure, so how we structure our ad account. So Meta, you mainly want to use that as an acquisition platform. So that's what it's best at, right? It's also good at retargeting and retention, but we mainly push most of our budget on acquisition, right? And so how we structure this, we can say, okay, cool. We look at the hero products of a specific brand. Okay, what is the product that generates the most contribution margin? What is the product that generates the most profit for the company, right? And so we focus on those specific product. And so a lot of times it's very few products that actually generate positive contribution margin, because sometimes a product either it costs too low or like the cost to manufacture that product is too high. And then when you just do the math, like it's, if you're paying Meta for each transaction, then you're actually losing money, right? And so you want to focus on the products that gives you the biggest profit, inclusive of like the CAC is, right? So we'll look at the hero product. Okay, we'll take the hero product. So this is what we want to focus on, right? So if you have multiple, okay, so you can obviously do the math and calculate what you need, in the sense that what's like the break-even ROAS that I need, or what is my CAC target that I need, want to be able to make a profit from this specific campaign or this specific product, or at least to at least break even, so I'm not losing revenue, right? So once you figure that out, then you set up a campaign according to that specific product, right? So for example, if you're an apparel brand and you sell like shoes, t-shirts, and and pants and things like that, right? So you probably want to look at like what are the products, or what is those shoes, right? What are the shoes that makes you the greatest profit, or that makes you the best profit, and you want to focus on that, right? And I know it can be kind of complicated when you have like a lot of different SKUs, and you're like, okay, cool, so like how does that really affect? And so typically what we've done is like we take like the average, we take like the average of what that is, and then we set that as the target ROAS, or like the target CAC, right? Okay, cool. So you've identified what that hero product is, right? And so you want to build a campaign specifically focusing on that, right? And why just one campaign? Because that campaign is only going to be associated with that product, right? Because when you set a target ROAS or a target CAC, it's only for that specific product, right? And so we have one campaign. We can have 2 to 3 different ad sets, right? Each separate ad set, maybe we're testing different creatives on that, right? And again, the key thing here is like you have to be using either a min ROAS bidding strategy or target ROAS bidding strategy, or you're using cost control in the sense that you're setting a target CAC on that specific ad set, right? And so here's what that does for you. That protects you from losing money on the product. That protects you from losing money on the product, right? Because if you know what your break-even ROAS is, you set the break-even ROAS on that ad set. And so Meta doesn't spend your dollars if it doesn't think that that's the highest probability that I can acquire a customer at that target ROAS or that target CAC. Guys, this is so important, right? This is so important because, again, I talked about this in previous episodes of the podcast. The goal of e-commerce, of business, is to make profit, is to make money, right? And so you want to orchestrate your growth engine. You want to orchestrate whatever that you're using to acquire a customer in a way that you're ensuring you're making profit per product or per transaction. You're making profit. Because if you're not, then okay, cool. You can't really scale a system or a business or an engine like that. You can't really scale that, right? So hopefully that's making sense. So we take that specific product. Again, if it's a pair of shoes, after figuring out what that target ROAS is or what that target CAC is, you set that on the asset level, right? And we leave it broad. When picking the audience, you leave it broad, right? And then this is kind of where you want to spend most of your time, creatives, right? Because Meta, the success of your account is going to be based upon like the creatives, right? And so we test, we can set like 4, even 6 or 8 different creatives per ad set, right? And there's a lot of different updates with Meta that allows you to do that more efficiently now. I don't know if you heard about like Andromeda, but like it's one of the biggest updates that we'll create a separate podcast talking about that, but it's one of the biggest updates that allows you to be able to test multiple different ads, right, efficiently, right? And the system is so smart that it's able to do that at a much faster pace, at a much more efficient pace, which obviously within a couple of days, you want to know if this ad is working or not. Then boom, you go on to the next batch that you're going to be testing, right? So cool. So you have your campaign, you have your ad set, you can test two. You can have, each ad set can be testing different creatives, right? So you have one campaign, you can have two ad sets, right? You set what that target CPA is or what that target ROAS is, and then you have anywhere from like 4 to 6 different creatives that you're testing. Boom. We set that just for that specific product, right? And a lot of what is going to happen is that, sometimes those ad sets may not even spend, right? Meta won't spend your dollars, right? This is an indicator that, okay, cool. The combination of creative to the image that you're using, the copy and like the CTA, it's not like, Meta doesn't think that it's good enough for a customer to be able to purchase through that, right? Maybe another phrase is that Meta is just telling you, hey, this is not a good ad. Go like refresh it or go create new ones, right? If your ad set, again, doesn't spend, it's just an indicator that you need new creatives, right? Because again, Meta determines who to target based upon the creatives, right? So they look like, the algorithm looks at the copy that you're using. It looks at the creative, the video, or whatever it may be. It uses that to find the target customer. Basically, the creative itself is the new targeting. Because what would happen in the past is that Meta, well, obviously, like a lot of people, they will use like interest audience to find like the target market. But now these days with the Andromeda and like a bunch of updates that Meta has made on the platform is that they use creatives to target the customer. So you want to make sure that you have good creatives, right? You're either you're telling some form of story or you're really addressing your customer in the specific creative that you're testing, right? So guys, you can do this. So you have the specific campaign just focusing on one product. Now, if you have multiple products that has a positive contribution margin, that you think has a positive contribution margin, then obviously you want to create different campaigns for the specific product, right? And then typically the thing that you could do is like, okay, you want to have a DPA, a dynamic campaign, so that, okay, cool. If somebody doesn't purchase the product from acquisition campaign, they can purchase from the dynamic product campaign, which is essentially, right, Meta is going to show the same product that the person was looking at on their feed with copy like, hey, we know that you were looking at this specific product. Here's free shipping to complete your checkout. Or here's like 10% off a discount. Or here's the 15% off discount to finish the transaction. Guys, how effective that works or how well that works is insane, right? And so that's kind of like the structure that we have, right? So when you look at, for example, one of our clients' ad account, like we have multiple campaigns focusing specifically on individual products, right? And again, it just works so well for us, right? And then we have a DPA campaign, dynamic product ad campaign, which anytime that an individual doesn't purchase the product for acquisition campaign, okay, boom, we know that we're retargeting them with a dynamic product ad. So like they get shown the exact same product that they were looking at in the feed, right? And again, guys, it just works so effectively. Now, other people may do, like, they may have like a standard retargeting campaign and they build out the audiences, like a 30-day retargeting, 60, 80 days, somebody that like added the product to cart, et cetera, et cetera. Like that works too, but we prefer to, and don't get me wrong, like we do set that up in some of our ad account, but we just see that DPA performs much better, right? And so then we prefer just kind of allocate those dollars that we would have spent on that campaign on acquisition, because like Meta is typically, it's a great acquisition platform, right? It's a great acquisition platform, guys. So that's kind of how like our setup typically works, right? And again, like I said, it's very effective. It works very well for us, right? We're curious, if you have a different setup that you kind of run that's working for you, let us know. Right, let us know, right? Because part of like the main thing that Lion Media is like, we want to focus on making the profits for our client, right? And so we build these guardrails around our campaigns, which is using cost controls, like in the form of bid cap or cost cap, right? And you'll hear us talk a lot about this cost cap, bid cap, min ROAS, right? So these are the guardrails that we set around on like specific campaigns or specific ad set. So we know that, okay, Meta, I don't want you to spend our advertising dollars if you don't believe that you can acquire clients at this specific target that we set, right? And so, I mean, that's really the way that business is run, that you should be running your business, right? Because nobody wants to be operating a business that's constantly at a loss, because you can't sustain that, right? Like you don't have endless supplies of cash, unless you're this massive brand that's just like constantly pumping, that you're constantly getting funded. But at some point, if you are that specific brand, investors are going to be, okay, when are we going to be making money? And, so the goal of business is to make profit. And so the system that we use, the system that we built at Lion Media, it's that we make sure that each order is profitable, right? And so that's the system, guys. And again, if you guys have a different methods, if I'm curious, if you do have a different method or system or the way that you're structuring an ad account that works, we'll be more than happy to kind of see. And, we'll see. We can test it out and kind of see which one works better. But guys, anyway, we're going to conclude this podcast with this, with this last message. And guys, one last thing that I want to say, if you're an e-commerce brand that is looking to scale their ad account, right, if any of the things that I said in this specific episode interest you in terms that, okay, we want to make sure at least that we want to make sure that we're profitable, like we're making a profit per client, we have set specific spreadsheets to make sure that we can track all of that, right? And so if that's something that you're interested in and you want to know how we do that, again, you can book a consultation or a strategy session with us completely for free. And then again, for free. And so we'll essentially build out the strategy for you and then we'll share with you. If it's something that you want to run with, you can take it and run it for yourself, or you can kind of partner with us to help you with this. Guys, anyways, talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.